What's good, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to another episode of Pro and Bro Wrestling Podcast. We are your hosts. I'm Arnold Telegaarda.
And I'm Mr. No Days Off, Fred Rosser. And this is a very special episode. I always say anyone that's a part of Pro and Bro Wrestling is very special to me. And we have none other than author and writer and creator of an amazing project that I didn't think that I could accomplish. I didn't think I could do, but I did it. I want to introduce Rob Gould. He's an amazing person, and thank you for joining us on Pro and Bro Wrestling. We're here to talk about the musical that you created, and you had me be a part of it.
I'm Michael Musto, the host of Reality TV.
What is Reality TV? Let's take it from the top. This is Rob. He's on top of life for the most part.
I forgot my laptop on the plane.
He loves musicals. After 10 years of trying to get his musical, Little House on the Ferry on Broadway, an investor finally gave him a chance on East Broadway. But there's a catch.
We're gonna get you 1 month.
1 month?
One night only.
One night only.
$10,000.
$10,000?
Even on a shoestring budget, this is the opportunity he's been waiting for. He will do anything to make his masterpiece. It won't be easy. The casting process is insane.
It's not a match for the singing.
Okay.
You cannot be that dismissive.
His investor surprises him with a must-hire lead actor who has never sang or danced, but has acted in the WWE.
Well, wrestling is kind of acting. It's like theater.
But he looks good.
I'm out. Take 5.
As far as headshots go, they would usually have a lot more clothes on.
Everything has gone wrong. The actors are divas.
This is going to be a disaster.
The crew is difficult.
I'm going to finish the fish costume. Do you want that done or not?
No. I told you what I want.
This is the most unprofessional thing you've ever done.
But so is he.
Where's the kiss? Where is the kiss?
I know Rob, and I have a feeling we're going to be arguing.
There's always another challenge, struggle, or roadblock. But this is his dream, and he'll do anything to make it a reality.
Do you feel comfortable having a penis painted onto your crotch?
If that's what the audience wants.
I don't know if that is what the audience wants.
It's a lot. Take a chill pill. The show goes on.
Here he is on the Lower East Side with a bunch of crazy ideas and a bunch of crazy people trying to put on the best show he can for an audience of investors who can turn his crazy dream into a real Broadway musical.
Break a nail.
Follow his journey on Reality TV.
If you want to use the toilet, I will go down the street. That's all I'm saying.
I always say don't die with the story and you tell it. So thank you for joining us on our podcast, Pro and Bro Wrestling, Rob.
Well, thank you, Fred. And it's actually not just a musical anymore, but Fred and I are going to be in a reality show called Reality TV. And it is about the making of a musical. And it's also many stories, one of which is how a pro wrestler can come to New York and act in a musical and compete with those other striving people that we're singing their hearts out to.
Rob, how do you say your last name again? Because this whole time I thought it was Gould.
It is Gould. That's
It is,
okay.
right?
We'll Photoshop or audio tunes that out. Okay.
It'll just be like my voice going Gould at the end of
Yeah.
a sentence. Well, thanks for being in our podcast, man. It's really an honor to have you. This is the first time we had a guest that's not really wrestling related, but I'm really interested because I myself, like everyone else in the whole world, we're all big fans of music, right? Music is universal. Music is for everyone. Of course, anyone can relate to like a love for music. And obviously you have a background in music. Like Fred said, you're an author, you're a director. And if my research serves me right, and by my research, I mean Fred, also a judge? Are you also a judge?
I was the judge in New York. Down here, I do judge. Yeah, I work on the court.
do judge. Wow.
Yeah. My profession you would call like arbitration, mediation, that whole, and the whole official title is alternative dispute resolution.
Wow.
So that whole field of people working out cases, it's growing. Yeah, I try to sit there. It is trying to listen to both sides, make decisions, help people. Sometimes I am the judge. I was a judge in New York. Do weddings, so that's sort of judge-like. But the other end of the spectrum, because that ain't that creative, is I created this one musical. And honestly, theater is a dying art. You know, people hear about it and like, oh, Broadway and everything. But generally, it loses money. But for some reason, I don't even know why, I wanted to write a musical. And I just wouldn't give up on it. But then I thought I would make lemonade out of it after I put it off a number of times. Good reviews, but it takes a lot more to get it to be something like a Hamilton, which is like, you know,
Sure.
a lottery
Sure.
of musicals.
Well,
But I thought I could make a reality show out of the making out of it. And in so doing, I thought I want a fish out of the water story. You know, I just didn't want everybody to be a New York striving actor. That was interesting. We have that story. And I was like, I need somebody, you know, fish out of water. And I was looking around, actually on a CNN list that came up among, you know, a lot of people. And there was Fred's name. And I just immediately went, that would be such fish out of water. Like wrestler being in a musical in New York.
Right.
And we did a little talking, and then Fred wanted to beat me up.
Classic.
Arnold, let me just tell you, before I had even met Rob, like, you know, I've done stuff with WWE where they give you little sheeters and you have to learn it by that night. I was given a 50-page book, you know, that I had to memorize, you know, and I got overwhelmed, and I told Rob, I can't do this project. It's just too much. And then he calmed me down. He assured me, you know, it's just a muscle that I haven't worked, you know, it's just a memory muscle. I just haven't worked so extensively. So no lie, I worked with Rob every day doing Skype. And he helped me out so much. And I fell in love with not only the project, but I fell in love with Rob. And we still talk, you know, after we were done with the project in February of this year, Valentine's Day. And we're just hoping that it will get picked up by a live streaming network. But I mean, the journey was just so much fun.
But let's just, you know, I wanted to talk about that because, you know, even people that are really into wrestling, it's like a part of your brain that you used way back in like 8th grade, where like the teacher's like, you have to come in and memorize like every, you know, country in Asia, like by Friday. And you, but you did it, and, you know, you strived with it. And then like, you know, some people in the class could do the whole thing and you got better at it. And those are the things. And then like somehow in high school, you didn't memorize as much. And then if you went to college, you didn't use it that much. And they had open book tests and interpretation. And then suddenly, you know, I'm like, you can do it. Your muscle is there in your head. And within a few weeks, he was there, like I promised.
It's just like your biceps, Fred. Just a muscle that you need to exercise. That's all it is, man.
Yeah, and that's how Rob explained it too. But Arnold, let me just tell you, this is a wrestling podcast, but we've got to ask Rob, does he have any wrestling stories, any backgrounds? Has he ever met any wrestlers? Has he ever watched a product before? This is a wrestling podcast. We'd like to know.
So when I was young, it was the early 80s. And my parents, for my birthday, I want MTV. And they got me, in order to get MTV, you had to get a little box that the cable box went into first, and then the wire went to the TV. And somehow the technology on the TV, that was the way in which to have another 7 channels beyond your local channels. Went to 12, and then you could have another 7 channels. And MTV was like the first one, and like the second one was like home shopping. And I think the third button was USA. And on USA was wrestling.
Yeah.
And so you would push that button. And that is like when I saw all these like hyper masculine men that of course were enormously intriguing to me. And I was like, you know, 13. And I still was, I mean, I long ago did not believe in Santa Claus. No, really. I was already Jewish, and I was like in the 2nd grade, already knew that Santa Claus was alive. But I did not, I remember going to school and they were like, you know, wrestling is, you know, a lot of theater and art. And I was like, no. And they, you know, it was definitely a matter of contention.
Yeah.
And I love the costume. I love the hero.
Yes.
And I mean, I was right at the time, you know, with a lot of the classics and, you know, Andre the Giant. And that's the era that I remember.
Sure.
And I remember it being really like built up, you know, Roddy
Piper. Yes.
And that was the era, you know, and like they all had their enormous cultural exaggeration.
Yeah.
So at the time, I mean, I was like very into the hero, which is about writing and the story and the villain. And, you know, that was a lot of theatrics and they just kept building it up. And then I do remember going to, when we were in college, I was in college in upstate New York and they had a local arena. And first year we got on the bus, like, you know, the old, like, you know, college campus school bus, you know, that was like freezing in the winter. And we like rode down and we went to wrestling. And it was like, I think it was absolutely every Friday. And the reason that you went is because they gave you a ticket if you went to the local bar. And at that time you could be 15 and you got a ticket, like as a part of the whole reason to get you there from the college campus. Like if you were a college kid, to get you to come to the arena, because they had other people to come. You were promised, if you brought 10 or more people, you all got like a free drink ticket. So we were there.
That's amazing. You mentioned Andre the Giant earlier, did you have a favorite superhero that you watched back then?
In wrestling?
Yeah.
I mean, I think just the yelling of Rowdy, how do you say it?
Rowdy Piper.
Rowdy Piper. I mean, he was just like over the top. I mean,
yeah.
Yeah, and like he would pray. He would like the tears and everything. I mean, it was like, yeah, I don't think it was like that. He wasn't like the good guy superhero, but he just like was like, you just had to watch it. Like, what's gonna happen next? Because then they would like run in and hit him or something. Like, what happened?
Arnold. Before we did the podcast, me and Rob had talked about him being on my podcast, and he used the F word with me. I don't like the word fake. You know, he's like, I wasn't. You know, Rob was like, I've seen wrestling, but I wasn't getting a hard on for Andre the Giant. You know, that's the kind of stuff that comes out of Rob's mouth. Rob is like the Paul Heyman. I wanted him to be on our podcast. He doesn't know who Paul Heyman is, but Paul Heyman's a manager in WWE who's very good with his words. So I always say that you're a cross between Paul Heyman and Chris Farley, because you're just so funny and you were just very honest and to the point, and you're a lawyer, so I can't lie to you. You know,
but I will tell you, in those days, even with wrestling, I mean, I would go into my parents' room, so I'd have to disconnect the box from my room and bring it into my parents' room. My parents got me MTV. They didn't even have the box. It was like a present. And I had to disconnect this is when they would go away and leave me home. I would have to disconnect the box from my room, bring the box into their room, hook it up to the Betamax, not VCR, and then I would tape like the really like hot wrestling guys, you know, and like hit start and stop and piece them together, you know, so I'd have them on a Betamax tape on demand. I guess you would call it on demand then, right?
Yeah.
And the tapes were only 1 hour long.
No kids today will never understand.
No, I'd have to take the tape and remember to bring it back to my room and put it under the drawer. Right.
That is a lot of work.
Yes, it was that. It was wrestling. It was the when they go to the stripper bar, the male stripper bar in Cagney and Lacey, and every other episode of TJ Hooker.
That's amazing. That's amazing, man.
If you remember TJ Hooker, it wasn't TJ Hooker. It was his rookie sidekick.
Okay. So, you know, like growing up, like were you always into Broadway shows? So that's something that right off the bat, you're like, you know what? When I grow up, I'm going to write my own Broadway show and it's going to be my thing. Or was this a completely different path for you?
I absolutely went to see a few musicals. My parents took me. They were sort of come to New York, go see a musical. It wasn't something they went out of the way doing, but it was definitely like special occasions and things. I didn't really go see that music. When I moved to New York, was a lawyer, lived there, had plenty of opportunities. If I want, that was not my thing, just didn't go see them. Yeah, friends were like, oh, we're going to see a musical maybe once or twice a year. It was a watershed event, sort of a light that came in. And I just thought to myself, I have this story to tell. And then I realized it needed to be told with music. And I remember sitting on the beach and my friend saying to me, what are you up to? And I said, I have this crazy idea. I'm going to write a musical. And I remember one friend said to me, but you don't really like a lot of musicals. And I went, that's a detail. And then the next friend went, but you don't know how to write music. And I went, well, I'll figure that out too. I don't know why.
Yeah.
But then, when you're in a creative world, like you both are, it's not easy. I mean, the pyramid's like this. There's a few people at the top. And like it's like a little, like, am I doing like, I'm not doing love now. I'm doing like, I'm doing creative pyramid. Everybody at the top is making all the money.
Yeah.
And then like everybody else is like down, 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 down. And musicals is like this very, you have to do like you have to do the little thing they used to use in like, geometry school.
Yeah.
Bring it all down because you make a very narrow pyramid. And I just keep trying. Now I think it's maybe TV.
Yeah.
Maybe one day a movie. It's called Little House on the Ferry. And it's a love triangle. And Fred plays Jake, and he's a great character. He's from Kansas. He is a great person who's coming into reality of his own self. He wants to go back to Kansas and be the first gay congressman from Kansas, change this world, make it a better place, make it a better country. And he wants to have an honest and sincere, loving relationship. And he has to try to figure out how to do that. And in so doing, the fish come out of the bay and sing to him.
Wow.
Yeah.
When you first saw Fred, what was your first thought of him?
Well, I'd seen pictures of him online.
Yeah.
And so it didn't go together. I saw pictures and then we were talking. But we didn't have a video call. But he was very much on time when he showed up. That's another thing about Fred. In the story, Jake gets everywhere early in the story. And then in the reality story, we made his character that he's like, I walk in the morning. This is in now real. It's like hard to differentiate when you're doing this. What's real and what's not real. I walked in the morning and I came into the office and he's sitting at this makeshift desk I set up. And I said, that's my desk. And he said to me, well, your name's not on it.
That's fair. I mean, that's fair.
So I put my name on it.
There you go. There you go. The term theality, that's never been said before, right? Is that something that you came up with?
It is something I came up with, yeah. And it's at theality.tv. It's going to be a reality show that kind of leads people through the struggles of making a musical, where we are trying to count down to a one night only rendition where hopefully we get the backing of financiers. So you have to stay tuned to see if we're all going to be able to win it together. It's like a lifeboat, or we have to put everybody on the lifeboat and finally have enough people to row. And then we finally have to see if it's good enough to get to port.
Yeah. That must
Arnold, just sorry to cut you off. Just the reality part of the show was brutal, man. Just to be on the side that Rob was on, auditioning people, it was brutal. And Rob was very honest. He was like Paul Heyman of reality TV. He was just brutally honest, man. And I'm like, wow. It is like we were both opposites. Like I try to see the best of both worlds, auditioning and then being part of the audition process. It is brutal, man. I don't know how people do it.
Were there tears during filming?
Yeah. There. Yeah. Auditioning in general is like a reality show. Just auditioning for like a little musical that nobody ever really heard of. In a little back room that nobody ever really sees, having people come in, telling about your life for just 1 minute, then trying to make a big impression. You're seeing multiple people, the chemistry of the person being in the room. It's like a reality show. Every time you go to cast something, there's always this style when I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, I feel like I'm in a reality show. it's such an intense thing. They're trying to please you, and you're trying to judge them, and it just leads to great funniness, lines, opportunities, and music, because people are trying to sing, and they don't have all the rehearsal. They have a little practice with the song, but then they're in the room, and it's quite American Idol.
And you guys filmed this in the span of, was it 1 month?
1 month.
1 month, right? How many times that 1 month that you guys reached your breaking point?
I never reached a breaking point. I just reached points where
you were very sick. You were very sick, but keep going.
I was sick. I was sick at the very end. I reached a breaking point with the costumer.
Oh, okay. Did you say the customer or the costume?
The costumer, the one who does the costuming.
Got it.
And to be specific, if she's a woman in the old world, it would be costumière. But they did away with that because we're gender neutral now. So the costumer.
Okay.
So the costumer, she and I had it out. Yeah. So you have to tune in for that. Yeah.
Ooh.
So
and Arnold, that is part of the sizzle reel that we can definitely show on the episode, so people can get an understanding of what Robin's talking about. But let's just say the costumer, her state wasn't very good, if you know what I mean. Like something was off, you know. So I was just cracking up, and I was just like seeing this stuff, and like the cameras were on, and like I'm like, man, is this like what the hell's going on here? It was bizarre, but I would do it in a heartbeat. If Rob said, "Oh, we're gonna take this on tour to 5 or 6 cities," or however we do it, I would do it in a heartbeat, because it was probably one of the hardest things I've ever done, but I learned so much.
It was amazing. It was great. You know, it's like you have to go back to even when you were young, and you know, you have to stand in front of the class, and you know, I don't want to
doing a book report, oral presentation.
Yeah, like an oral presentation, or you know, you have to come up and talk about, you know, your turn is to talk about Peru, you know, and you have to, you know, like every kid has to do it. If you magnify that times a 2-hour play, I mean, I told Fred the gratification is amazing, because, you know, people really are there applauding for you, and he does wrestling.
Yeah.
And, you know, when you finish a song and you look out and you see people emotionally in your character, it's very similar for him, but I think I took it to a new level in his life.
Sure.
I think.
I'm sure.
What do you think, Fred?
Yeah, you know, it's all similar, because I've been wrestling over 18 years, and I've been trained to listen to the people. What are they reacting to? And I can honestly say the last show we did, we filmed 3 of them. The last show, I hit a home run. I didn't forget any lines. The other 2 takes, I didn't forget anything. I would just maybe skip around, or there were no hiccups where I stopped talking. I just kept going. Certain times I mentioned the wrong city or something like that. But the last take we filmed, I had a solo, and I could hear the people like rooting for me, because I was chasing love, you know, and I could hear the people rooting for me, and it was very magical. And after I was done with my solo, I came off the stage, and I was crying my eyes out. And the ladies that were part of my solo, like I was looking at them, I was like, look at my eyes, you know, look at my eyes. And these girls that have experience said, well, this is why we do this, you know, because they love what they do. And that just like, I was putting eye drops in my eyes, because they were bloodshot, because I was just so proud of myself, you know. And
as you should be.
And I was disappointed that WrestleMania didn't happen, because that's all I was going to be talking about. You know, people ask me when they see me, "Oh, you're not with WWE anymore. How's everything going?" Well, everything is great. I just got off this off-Broadway musical about marriage equality,
and we are so lucky that we got it done, because 3 weeks later, in the world, I know everything in the world stopped.
Yeah,
and we are so lucky that we got it done. But can I tell them about
yes.
Fred, can I tell them about you and my husband?
Yes.
So Fred is supposed to do what we were calling the sex scene, which is really a flashback through a YouTube video done on stage, where supposedly we're seeing Fred being caught in a motel room in Kansas 10 years prior to the play. And the guy that's supposed to have played it got sick. And I told my husband, you have to do the sex scene. So Fred's in the scene with that. Fred's a little reluctant to do it. My husband's a little reluctant to do it. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, typical, stress all over the place. And I'm like, it's art. Just do it. Yeah. You're both dressed. You have clothes on. Just please.
Yeah.
And then all they talk about, the both of them, because they call, they talk to each other too. Yeah. Every time we're anywhere, and Jerome's like, I did the sex scene with Fred Rosser,
It's like bragging rights, right?
Yeah. It was like, could you just do it? Could you please? It's like having a little kid around. It's like, I don't want to go. I don't want to go up and be in the Disney World Center. I don't want to do it. And then your kid finally goes up and it's like 10 years later, I was in the Disney World.
That's funny, man.
Arnold,
yeah.
Like I had never seen the sex scene before. Rob had never done the sex scene, and I was boiling. I wish I could have my mom on the podcast, because I would be in the theater and I would be checking my watch and I would be yelling out 98, and my mom's like, "What's 98? What's 98?" My blood pressure. 98.
Oh my gosh.
I was like boiling hot, but we made it work, man. And
by far, in my opinion, I'm the author, by far the most artistic breakthrough for me that night was that scene, in terms of the use of the space, the use of theater, the use of the body, which has been done to death in theater, but the way it came out, everybody in the audience laughed, everybody in the audience was with me, and just by a flick of a light, everybody knew that we were a YouTube video, like we were on somebody's phone, and then back again.
Right.
It was, to me, I was so happy that I got it done, because theater, everything's been done. It's like painting and everything. How do you come up with something new? Wrestling.
That's true. That's true.
How do you come up with a new character? How do you come up with something new? And how do you get people interested? And it's hard. It's really hard. It's
I get that, man. You mentioned earlier that you were looking for someone who was a fish out of water, and obviously you saw that in Fred as a wrestler. And when you started working with him, again with him having zero experience with singing and dancing, and being a Broadway show, what did you think of his work ethic?
Well, he gets there early. He stays late. He's patient. He is trying to process everything. And he was by far not the worst apple in the barrel. I mean,
I'll take that. I'll take that.
We definitely had people that I needed to give more direction to, and I needed to explain their character more, and they weren't living it. And Fred just, when I saw him on stage, he brought in some of his wrestling faces, but the other times he was sensitive, and then he brought on, hope, and, it was just there. I mean, when it ran through, everybody in the theater was believing it. And honestly, he brought a lot of sense to it. And I just think the character that he played is something that every character has to be identifiable for everybody in a different way. People really identify with the fact that, earlier in their life, they had a falling out, they had to reinvent themselves, they had to leave their family, they had to come, and he's reinventing himself as a political ideologue, like sort of you'd call it like a sort of pseudo MSNBC kind of blogger. He's trying to make his life. And he believes, Jake is a believer in truth and justice and the American way. And then Fred just came right in, and he was just like, I was like, I was talking to him like this, and I was trying to get him motivated.
Yeah.
And, I would have to talk to him like for 2 minutes, and he's like, okay, I got it. Maybe he's a lot of wrestling. Other people are like, I don't get it, because they're method actors, and it's so frustrating.
Method actors,
It's like, okay, I got it. And I'm like, okay, go. I got 5,000 things to do. And other people are like, well, what did you mean here when you wrote this? Because they don't work with the author very much.
Sure.
could you just act? Could you
just be?
Could you just go over there and do it? It just I opened the door. You don't need directing.
That's funny.
But Rob, I would always joke with you, and I was serious about it. Like, I was method acting. I was like, before we started doing it, like I said, all right, well, I've got to have a Kansas City accent. I gotta have a mustache. I gotta have glasses. Like I have to be a politician, a gay politician. So I was like becoming it, and like you were like, you don't need that. You don't need that. You don't need
that. Yeah, that's not even what method acting is. So you were kind of doing a personification of method acting, and once you just realized you didn't need that, it was all good. It was a great experience. I'm really proud of it. Hopefully people could go to the website right now. They're listening, which is theality.tv. You can see information about Fred. You can see information about all the characters. We're editing it right now. We have proposals.
Great.
And if anybody out there, by the way, has a musical in this wrestling world, or has a brother or a cousin or a sister that has a musical, send it on to Fred or vis-a-vis to Fred, because we're going to be doing season 2, which is going to be the next season of Theality TV, which is the making of a musical that gets to come to New York and try it out. Sort of, there was like a wrestling show where they had like tryouts and everything, right?
Yeah, Tough Enough. Yeah.
Tough Enough, yeah. This is the Tough Enough of theater.
Amazing. I love that, man. There must be so much pressure on both of you guys, filming a reality show and at the same time actually producing a Broadway show with a live audience. You guys have to put on this play on top of this play inside of this show. So that's like so many layers that you guys have to think about and have to perfect. And how did you guys deal with that night when you guys perform for the first time in front of a live audience? What was the emotions going through you guys and everything?
Well, I don't have to perform, so that goes to Fred.
Okay, Fred. How did you feel?
Oh man, I mean, just like I'm in the ring, I'm a nervous wreck, but once I hit the curtain, like the nerves just go away.
Yeah.
But I have to ask Rob, can you let our audience know what where Fire Island is and like what's it all about? Because I never knew what Fire Island was all about until I worked with you.
Well, the show is actually set in Fire Island, which is probably a lot of listeners have to think to like a summer resort, maybe when your parents took you to the beach, but it's like a place you get away. Like you have to drive in your life, if you know that place that your parents took you like 3 hours away, like the cabin, the lake, a getaway.
Right.
Physically, Fire Island is a barrier island, and it's a good 15-minute ferry ride off the coast of New York. New York, Long Island actually sticks out into the ocean to Long Island. And there's actually this little barrier island that's just wide enough to have houses in certain places, bird sanctuaries in other places, public parks. But every about half a mile or so is a town where there's houses, and different towns have different ferries, and there's different culture and different nightlife. Some are very quiet, and some are filled with a lot of families, and a couple were historically gay. And one is called Fire Island Pines, and you get out there, and it's a very, very beautiful place filled with a lot of beautiful homes that are very close together. And everybody has to go into the ferry, so you see everybody on the ferry. Everybody has to go out of the ferry. There's no cars.
Right.
And there's these little boardwalks, and the streets don't really meet. They're sort of wood, like just wide enough for like maybe 2 people to pass.
Right.
And so you see people like walking, and you'll see them cross. And the town is in the middle, and it's very rustic with these houses and the beach. But everybody has to come into the town at night or for evening to go to the bar. So in this barrier island, there's different towns, and one is Cherry Grove and one is the Pines, and they're both historically gay. And these towns have it where everybody goes out in the little town at night. There's a couple bars and a couple restaurants, a couple real estate agents. And in the summer months, from basically mid-June to early September, it's the place to be. New York City, everybody lives in these little boxes and are tightly compact, and people feel the warmth of the city. So New York City gets wicked hot in the summer. The humidity goes sky high. The subway is like a sauna. And you're having to go, you get out of the subway and you go into these big buildings that have air conditioning. Air conditioning up there, by the way, is not like it is in Florida. In Florida, it's nice and cool. Everything's even and everything. You're in New York, you get into air conditioning, it's like igloo. It's like fucking igloo. It's so cold. And you're sitting there, you're freezing in the sun. You go out of the building and like humidity like fills up the glass and you feel air conditioning floating out of a if you've never been to New York in the summer, worse than Washington, but New York is famous too. Anyway, finally the summer comes, the weekend comes, and everybody wants to dash out of the city. It's hot, smelly, it's disgusting, and get to the beach or the mountains. Beach, mountains, probably famously told like Jersey Shore, the Hamptons. And among those kind of weekend places, you got a city of like 14 million people, is Fire Island. And you go out there and people have these famous shares. They live in sort of these communal houses, very nice houses. Some are junk, some are fabulous. And people eat dinner together and they live together in their house together. And that's like this weird, unique experience for people kind of more familiar right now, like Jersey Shore and stuff.
Yeah.
With this sort of summer experience where people really go on the weekends. And I bought a place out there to get out of the city in the summer months. And I loved it. And it's very unique. The deer run around. They're very docile. You think they're dogs. So you got deer running around. You got lots of people like looking to have a great time on a weekend like any other sexy resort. You got a lot of people drinking, a lot of people doing a lot of things. There's dancing going on at night. And, it's such a unique experience. I had this idea that I wanted to tell a story about it. And then I was on my deck having, my Honey Nut Cheerios.
Yeah, good choice.
I saw the deer eating. The deer are like right among you, in the morning. You're sitting up here on like a deck, everything's on stilts. And the deer are beneath you eating the grass. They're having, breakfast, you're having breakfast. And all of a sudden the deer jumped over, they have these little fences, jumped over the fence and started eating the grass again. And I started to think to myself, why did the deer need to go from over here where it was eating to over there? And if you think like a deer, the answer is obvious, because the grass was greener on the other side of the fence.
Wow, that's deep. But
and if you think like a deer, then you have to jump that fence. And that is why I wrote it. That is the main climax. That's why I have this tattoo. Wow. We're gonna go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Show it. Yes.
Yes. And this.
Oh, that's some good ink work.
Yeah, I know people is really, there it is. Got it? You got a view on it?
Yeah. Yeah.
So this is an homage to the musical, which is really about Fire Island. This is the deer jumping the fence. And this is sort of an impression of the town here.
Yeah.
And then the seagulls, the birds, are right up here. This is the water. And this is from the song. This is an homage to my musical. And this is the song, Jump That Fence.
Wow. That's beautiful, man.
Yeah, that's when you know you're into it.
Yeah, you're right. Set it on your body for life.
Yeah. And then this is the shirt. This is the little house in the ferry.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking, getting a tattoo. That's kind of, wanted to get one. A lot of people go through that. And I was at Epcot Center. You ever been to Epcot Center?
I love Epcot. I loved it.
And it was in the Japanese pavilion, and they have a little museum there.
Yeah, I was there.
Yeah, and in one of the impressions, they have a rabbit jumping a fence, and it said in the little notes for the museum piece that this was often tattooed on samurais when they got to a certain level in the southern part of Japan, for some reason the southern part. And I thought to myself, I don't want a rabbit jumping the fence, I want a deer.
I love that, man. That's really good.
Little Epcot Center inspiration there. Always educational.
I love Epcot because I feel like Epcot is the park in Disney World where it kind of caters to adults more than kids. because I'm a big foodie, and you know they have that whole like food around the world
Oh my God.
deal. And it's we spent like a whole day at Epcot just eating. It was
at every stand, they don't just have food from around the world. They have a little drinky drink.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
If you start at Mexico, you're drunk by the time you get to England.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And finish it off with a little bit of crepe from Paris, and
by the time you get to France, you'll eat anything.
Is that the first and only tat you have, or do you have more tats?
This is it. This is I guess you say almost a half sleeve.
It's a big piece.
Yeah, it's a big piece, and I believe that Little House one day, it's more than an opus. I was just hoping that the TV show is either a great success that Fred could come back and be a part of, that we can have other musicals, or people get interested when they watch the TV show. You'll watch the TV show, binge it, and then you can watch the whole musical. So it's sort of, remember Project Greenlight?
Haven't seen it.
Oh, they kind of develop a new kind of like independent film, but then the idea is like how it gets pitched and made and everything and filmed, and then you can watch the film.
Really cool.
So it's a little bit of styled on that.
I like it, man.
And hopefully people like you that'd be like, what, or sitting with somebody and be like, oh, this is really interesting how it's made, everybody arguing, things coming together.
And all that. Yeah. It's really cool. I like it.
Wrestler in it, what's going on here? And then you'd be like, wait, I want to watch the musical now. It's like I gotta like get them, to like actually sucker them. Yeah.
I saw little snippets
of it's like Sky Mall,
Sky Mall.
You actually flew, but you're like, what, that went out of business though, because everybody's like got the headphones on.
Right.
It was really great with the Sky Mall. You flew, but you could shop at the same time.
Yeah, there you go. I was watching a little bit of the like the trailer. And I really love the part where you guys are going over headshots, and it's Fred's headshot, and they're like, oh, usually there's a little bit more clothes.
Yeah,
in the headshots, and it's Fred's wrestling headshot. That was really funny.
Yeah. Well, Fred is brought to us by the financier to be a little eye candy, to be honest with you, for the financiers. That actually is very true when you do something in New York. They bring in a name, famously told. You remember the movie Tootsie? Let's just go back to the very beginning of the Dustin Hoffman version, where he was supposed to be up for Iceman Cometh. And they wanted a soap opera star that can act. That happens all the time. They, you want to have somebody, that's like, well, we had people coming in to see it, and we wanted somebody that would be a little attractive.
In 2020, we call that clickbait.
You do? Oh, you taught me something.
Yeah.
I love English, and I like words. So the show is really built on, from the name Little House on the Ferry.
Sure.
People might have misheard that during this whole interview. Is it Little House on the Prairie? It's Little House on the Ferry.
Right.
Because there's a ferry that goes to Fire Island, and the house that they stay in, originally back in the 50s, they didn't have a lot of technology to actually build on the island. What they would do is they build it kind of, we'd call it prefab, and float it over, and then finish it over there. And that's a lot of the houses. And the house that they stay in was a little house on the ferry.
Really cool. Really cool.
Yeah, it all comes together. It all comes together. It's all explained.
Arnold, not only did Rob get to work with me, he got to work with my mom. Rob, can you tell everyone about the experience working with my mom? How was it like for you?
Well, that was like its own little movie in the beginning, because at first I was like, okay, who is this person telling me to do everything? And then I was like, I wanted her out of there, and then by the end we were like best friends.
Aww.
That was like its own little movie, like two people, like, what was that? That was like Clueless, where like they hate each other and then they love each other. It's like
in love relationship. I love. Well, I can see that, because she has a big personality and you have a big personality, and sometimes it can kind of clash a little bit.
Yeah. But his mother ended up taking a lot of photos, and she got the story. A lot of people, like any piece of art, there were some people that got it on a totally different level, that connected with their past and connected with the fact that even at her age and everything, she still wanted to jump fences. That's the story. The story really has a central theme to it, which is you really need to find who you are in life. And she really connected with it. She had been to Fire Island, but she sat there and she watched it, and she became a really big fan of my music. That's kind of cool when you write,
Yeah.
and you do art of any kind. But when people like connect with you and they're like, I understand you because I like your music. And then music is such a thing that
yeah,
it's so hard to get out there now. It's so hard for people to, I give away my music. I send it to people. But when people are sitting there and they're like, oh my God, I love your music. It's awesome.
Yeah, it has to be a gratifying feeling for sure.
Well, it's no Taylor Swift, so I got to get it out there somehow.
I want to ask, what's your favorite genre of music that you listen to personally?
I mean, I definitely will, I definitely have the 80s channel on a lot. I'm a boy of the 80s, as we covered with the
When you say 80s, are you talking about like Aerosmith, talking about Prince, you talking about Michael?
I'm talking about NXS and Pet Shop Boys and Erasure, the English imports, the one song wonders, the MTV, but definitely with some Prince, no doubt. You have to have Prince in there.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, he's just a mammoth phenomenon.
Yeah.
What a loss. That's like so long ago. It's like we're just gonna have to say pre-corona, right? Because everything's
Yeah, you're right.
Like pre 9/11, like you'll say pre 9/11. Now you.
That's crazy, huh?
What kind of world that's like, that's like pre-corona. That's like it happened before corona.
You were talking about how glad that you got this project done before the whole thing happened. It's crazy.
Not done yet. Filmed. But
filmed. Yeah, filmed. But like same for me. Like I felt like January felt like a whole different world. We didn't know that our whole lives is gonna be rocked. But like 2 months later, I remember when this whole thing went down. I was actually on my 3rd year wedding anniversary with my wife, and at that time, this is when the virus already happened, but it hasn't escalated to what it is today. And this is when it was still in China, and we went to Bali in Indonesia, and we were there, we were hearing like some news here and there, but I remember thinking like, oh man, like I can't wait till we go back to the US where we don't have to worry about it. And because we were traveling, so we were wearing masks, and we're like, man, okay, that's cool. When we go back to the US, we're all relaxing, everything's good. When we come back here, and it's just like world changed.
I can relate to that because as Fred alluded to before, that something hit the entire cast that was a bad cold, and it went through about, of the 20 people on the entire project, 9 got sick, including myself. 9 or 10 got sick.
Yeah.
And I even had to take off a day. And I got the antibody test, and if that was accurate, I did not have the coronavirus to the point where I had to build up enough immunity to it.
Yeah.
But I feel with this, you can relate to people that go through other tragic times and other things, because some days I feel like, I'm not going to be like so indefensible. Then I turn on the TV and I see how many people are dying. I'm like, oh, I got to be careful again.
Yeah. I don't want to get too deep into it, but I was there's so many cases where people got sick in December, and they were saying like, like I've had a cold before, and this isn't like any other cold. I would go to doctors and they don't understand what my symptom is. They don't know why I'm not getting better, and now I'm better. But now thinking back, like I think it was COVID. I think I think I had like coronavirus, but at that time people didn't really know or had too much knowledge about it. But it's intense, man. It's crazy. I'm telling Fred, he kind of like teases me a little bit, but every time I go out the house, man, I'm wearing gloves. I'm wearing the mask, like hand sanitizers on deck. It's intense, bro.
Well, I mean, it fascinates me in, is it a story? Because, it's a story of survival, and, some people are surviving it and coming out of these hospitals, and, that always makes for a good story, like life and death, and, people trying to get you through, and, you don't know what it is. And I mean, that makes for a good story. There'll be people writing and making documentaries and books about it for years.
Yeah.
But the part of it is that the unknown.
Right.
We don't know. Every time they start trying to tell us the big they, oh, this is all you have to do. And it's like, oh, well, then somebody else got sick.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, speaking of story, I'm definitely super excited to see all your episodes in the show, and I can't wait for it to get picked up. And I love that it has such a beautiful message behind it, and good for you, man, for just having the passion, the urge, like, you know what, I think I want to do a Broadway theater show, and you're just out there doing it. You did it.
Well, yeah, and I hope that you tune in. I think for a lot of people that want to watch the show, it's a little bit of how does this all come together? Because I think people can appreciate on a surface level, like, oh, they sit down and they watch the theater, and you could say to them, oh, do you realize what has to go into this? And some people are party planners or whatever, they can appreciate it more. But it is definitely, we get into a lot of that. It's like the choreography, the lighting, all of that is art. Each person, which is why it's a very strange art form. Each person, when you write a musical, has to be their own artist. Like Fred has to be an artist.
Yeah.
The lighting guy has to be an artist. All these people have to be an artist. So, when you come up with it and you want to put it up, you have to have all these other people that go, and then you're on very limited budgets. And that's what made the magic happen when it came together. And hopefully we'll tune in and they'll see when Fred talks about he got all his lines right that one night. Everybody got almost everything right that one night. That's where the magic was. That's where the magic was. And
Rob,
I think that a lot of people can relate to that. I think, from doing a lot of weddings, I think, and you said you had you were married. I don't know if you had like a shindig, but that's what it's like. It's all that goes in and then it comes together. And some of them, I go to so many, I see them falling apart. The bride gets all upset. Things are late and, and they don't, it's because it's live and it's hard to put together. And this was no small task. And boy, oh boy, from Fred on up, everybody brought their A game. What do you call it in wrestling, huh? Their A game?
Yeah, their A game.
Yeah.
Wrestling term.
Yeah, that's what you call it. But Rob, before we wrap up, I just definitely want to say thank you for being on my podcast. But before we wrap it up, do you remember the demand during the audition process? Now, I wasn't part of the audition. I was with you judging people. What was my personal demand since I was part of the team?
Your personal
demand? Remember?
When you were sitting next to me?
Yeah, what was I looking for?
You were heart and soul. I don't remember.
I was looking for a hot Asian.
Hot Asian. I think Arnold said he was taken.
Very funny. Very funny.
We had one Asian, but I actually called that guy, and he had some sort of a conflict. I do remember some guy being Asian, and he was pretty halfway decent, but he had some sort of a conflict. He couldn't do it. So
sorry, Fred.
But I said if I was gonna be, doing a love angle with someone, they had to be Asian. That was all part of the gimmick, But it turned out Mike Dorsey was an incredible lead. Like, what would you call it? Like, was he the lead? I'm still learning the terminology.
Mike is the lead. Yeah, he's the lead.
And what was I?
You are lead number 2.
Oh, okay.
Actually, you're lead number 3 because you come in, your lines are, it would have to be, if you really wanted to get technical in Broadway, they would count the number of lines you had. Technically, you're probably either 2 or 3. People actually sit there and do that. I haven't gotten down to that point. You're either lead 2 or lead 3.
Well,
and in an old Broadway, you would be male lead number 2. They would have listed it by gender. But as I mentioned before, they don't do that stuff anymore. So we have to be gender neutral. So yes, you have to be gender neutral all over Broadway because it's very old school. And they have a lot of old terminology. But, Fred learned language in there. He learned timing. He learned how to sing. But, he brought his muscles. He brought his smile. And he brought his wrestling. And, he was wrestling Chung. We didn't even get into that, the musical director. You were showing her how to wrestle. He was like telling me he was showing people how to wrestle, like as if not enough was going on. I'd come through the theater and like people were like doing wrestling moves. I'm like, okay, we have to rehearse now.
I mean, it was a lot of fun. Chong, Tim, just a whole cast. If I could do it again, I'd do it in a heartbeat. Like I always say, don't die with the story and you tell it. And I was very happy that you were able to join us on my podcast so people can really get an understanding of our relationship. You know, anytime someone calls me, like someone can call me, I can be like, oh, who's this person calling? But anytime I see his message come up on my phone, I'm just smiling from ear to ear, and I pick up right away because I know he's gonna have me. I know he's gonna have me laughing, and just we're just gonna be just talking about ideas and just talking about life.
That's me. I like to have ideas, and reality TV. I need a creative challenge, and as I said in my regular work, it's sitting there with people that have had problems happening somewhere between 3 months and 2 years ago. It's a very non-creative world, and I really loving the balance out of it. And for all the people here that are into wrestling, and they love that hero story, and they love challenges. I hope they can watch reality TV because it's a hero story. Jake's the hero, and it's about in the end that it's about loving yourself with all of the fights in the world and all the challenges. The story is age old. So hopefully people that are listening to this want to watch reality TV or Little House on the Ferry. If they want some free songs, they can go to littlehouseontheferry.com. There is free music there. All they have to do is download it, and it's theirs for free. I hope you enjoy my music. If you like that song that's there for free, it's on the right-hand side, by the way, just message me, which is through the website, and I will send you even more songs. I got songs if you want them.
You're the best, Rob. Thank you so much. You're the best, bro.
Thank you.
Can you tell Rob our relationship, because he doesn't know our relationship. I just asked him to do the podcast. So 1 minute or less, we're neighbors. 1 minute or less, tell him who we are.
So I mentioned I've been a wrestling fan all my life, and one day I decided to walk my dog Junior. My dog Junior hates walking, so I was like, "Come on, Junior, let's be a dog today and actually walk." And I was walking Junior across behind my house, and then I saw Fred, and at the time Fred was known as Darren Young, his WWE name. And in my head I was like, "Oh shit, that's Darren Young, like a few steps away from me." It's literally just me and him in the street, so I'm definitely gonna say hi. I'm already like fanboying, and at this time, Fred already made eye contact with me, and he's already smiling. So I'm like, okay, like he's not annoyed. Like, okay, he's not annoyed. Like I can approach him, and I was like talking to Fred, like, "Hey man, like a big fan, Darren Young. Can we get a picture?" And then he's like, "Yeah, of course, absolutely." And I was so stoked that he was like, he's my neighbor. He told me he just moved in, and we exchanged Instagram. And again, him being my neighbor, we just kept on like DMing each other back and forth. And later we found out we had so many things in common, being an only child, our love for wrestling, our love for music and R&B. And we just started hanging out. And at that time, people were already telling him like, "Hey, Fred, you should have a podcast. You should have a wrestling podcast." And he's like, "Oh, sure, I'll think about it. And then one time Fred was like, "Hey, if I were to have a wrestling podcast, would you co-host it with me?" I was like, absolutely, I'll do it. And then later we just, 1 year, like, let's do it. Let's make it happen. Because whenever we hang out, we talk wrestling anyway. So why not just press record and do it?
I think it's time to take this podcast home. You got to get your beauty sleep, Rob. Like I said, thank you very much. I wouldn't have you on the podcast if I didn't love you, man, because I want people to hear your story.
Yeah. Huh? It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I want people to hear you. You're funny. You make me laugh. This podcast is like therapy for me. That's another reason why I do it, because it's like therapy. Now I feel great for the rest of the week now that we've had you on.
Arnold, it was nice meeting you too.
Such a pleasure, bro. Okay, so before we started this podcast, I actually just finished the Undertaker documentary that was on Netflix. What I love about it is the fact that I think it drops every Sunday. And the documentary takes place in 2017 to 2020. That's a 3-year documentary, a camera crew following Mark Calloway for 3 years. Like, imagine how much content and behind the scenes stuff that we're gonna see. Did you see a little bit of the trailer for that?
I don't know if I saw the actual trailer, but I saw the one part where he's like hugging Triple H, and
Yeah.
he's not he's kind of unsure about himself, and I forget Hunter says, what does Hunter say? Don't forget where you
Don't
came
forget who
from.
you are, you know.
Yeah, don't forget who you are. And that's the one thing, even as a fan and even being in the business, the wrestlers, these grown men, these masculine men consoling one another and kissing each other
Yeah.
and hugging one another. I love it, man. I think it's great. And to see someone like The Undertaker kind of be unsure about himself, he's an OG, you know? It puts me at ease. It makes me feel more comfortable as a performer and not put so much pressure on myself. To see
Right.
someone like The Undertaker be unsure about himself, you know, it's not so bad.
That's true, man. That's true. And the first episode, it basically talks about his whole match in 2017 with Roman Reigns. And that was supposed to be his last match. That's why the camera crew was there. But he was so unhappy with how the match turned out that it couldn't be his last match. He needed to redeem himself. And I totally forgot, because I actually watched that WrestleMania, not live in person, but you know, on the WWE Network. But there was this one spot where they kind of botched a reverse tombstone, and that's something that really bothered The Undertaker. He felt so horrible and bad that happened. But it's a good documentary. Sunday was such a cool day because it was Money in the Bank, and then it was the Undertaker documentary. I actually didn't really watch Money in the Bank. I'll probably watch that tomorrow, but I just think it's a cool concept with it being at the HQ, right, the WWE headquarters. And I just saw little snippets here and there. Did you watch, like, I mean, did you at least like find out like who won or anything like that with the big matches?
I didn't really check it out because I was babysitting my god baby, so that's not an excuse. I was actually watching them and doing IG Live, so
Yeah.
I was having a lot of fun with that. But you know, I was on the IG Live saying, "Hey, Money in the Bank is where I won the tag team championships, whether it's 1 time, 5 time, or 10 times. I did it.
Yeah,
I did it.
absolutely.
You know, so I can pat myself on the back again, like Barry Horowitz." But yeah, I didn't check it. I'll try to
Bro,
look into. I'll try to look into it tonight or tomorrow.
can I tell you who won?
Otis won, didn't he?
Yeah, Otis won, man.
That was like out of nowhere, and he's very entertaining. Like, I remember coming back from my elbow injury, working out at the Performance Center. He's just a ball of energy, and I would love to wrestle him because he seems like just like a teddy bear in the ring.
He's a star. He's a star, and he has so much personality and charisma. And rumor is that WWE is officially thinking of breaking up Heavy Machinery and have Otis the full-time single.
That's going to be tough, man. That's going to be real tough. I've been on the other end of that when Titus and I break up and then get back together, break up and get back together. You know, it's just like the Brawl for All experience. Like, me and Titus didn't physically fight each other, but when we physically broke up, we were still in the same hotel room. Well, not really the same hotel room, because after about the second or third night of ever traveling with Titus, I said, no, I got to get my own room. I have to get my own. I can't room with him. I don't care. I don't care if I got to pay more money, but I'm not going to room with him because he doesn't sleep. You know, when I get to my hotel room, I'm out, man. Like, I'm out. I need to get sleep. He gets into this hotel room. He has on all the lights. He's having phone sex. You know, I have to get to sleep. I have to get to sleep. You know what I mean? So I can't handle that. But I love Titus. Titus knows I love the big man. But yeah, I couldn't room with him anymore. I don't know where that came out of what we were talking about, but Yeah. Oh, about Otis being by
Yeah.
himself.
Yeah.
Yeah. We all know how it is, you know. But yeah, Otis can definitely make moves by himself.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Don't count out the other fella. What's the other fella's name?
Wow, putting me on the spot. Otis and
I don't know, but he's a nice guy, I think.
yeah. Yeah. What was I gonna say? Okay, let's end it with this, man. I don't know if you saw it on Instagram, like literally a few minutes before we hopped on here. Becky Lynch. Do you know about this?
I seen a picture of Becky and Rollins. What's going on? Is she pregnant or something?
Becky Lynch released the WWE Championship to Asuka because she is pregnant.
Oh my goodness, really?
Yeah,
Bro,
so she was.
I had no idea. I was just guessing. Guessing.
So Asuka, she's been been playing a heel, but I don't know if they told her. I don't know if it was a shoot and Becky decided to really tell her in front of the camera, or they talked about it and Asuka's supposed to react how she reacted, because Asuka's supposed to be a heel, but then I didn't see the full promo. I just saw it on IG, but Becky's like saying like, yeah, like, you're the champion now, and you go ahead and you become a warrior, and like I know you're happy, but I'm happier because I'm gonna be mother. And then Asuka's like, Becky, and then they hugged, and Becky was like crying. So that was a real cool moment. And then as she was walking into the ramp, she looked at the camera. She's like, I'm gonna miss you guys. That was really cool.
That's incredible. Well, I'm happy for the both of them, man.
Yeah.
They're both talented, man. And like, yeah, we're larger than life superstars, but we're also human too.
Absolutely.
And, people want to have families, and nothing but the best for them,
Mm-hmm. And I think it was the best case scenario for Becky, right? She won the championship last WrestleMania, whole year of being champion, retained it this WrestleMania, and now she's relinquishing the belt. That she didn't even get defeated. Like, what a run! That's a dream run right there.
That's why she's the man, baby. That's why she's the man. Can you check out my WrestleMania hat?
Yeah, man.
You remember what WrestleMania this was from?
That's the one with Sting and Triple H for sure out in San Francisco. Number wise, 32?
I don't know. 30, 31. I don't know. 31, 32. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know which one it was, but like sometimes I like doing the podcast via Zoom outside, because this episode you can see we started off, it was light, now it's getting dark. So
yeah,
it's just like the WrestleManias that are outside, like
that's true.
The kickoff show and the first couple of matches, it's light.
Right.
Then the main event, baby, it's dark.
Pitch black.
Pitch black. It's show time. It's go time. It's main event time. So yeah, this was a fun episode, man.
It was a great episode. Rob is a great guy, and it's really cool to to learn what you went through, what he went through, his background and everything. And
I told you, Rob's like he's a cross between Paul Heyman and Chris Farley, man. When you see him and the red lights on, he is like right back at you, and you can't get caught in a lie, because he's got something for you in a good way. So if he was in the wrestling business, he would be Paul Heyman. He would be my Paul Heyman.
That's true, man. Hope Bob's not jealous about that.
Hey, it is what it is.
Yeah.
Triple H took that dream away from me. Rob's my plan B.
There you go. As always, guys, this has been such a fun podcast. I feel like this was a long one, but it was a fun ride. Thank you guys so much for watching and listening to us. If you guys are watching us on YouTube, make sure you guys subscribe and leave a comment. And if you guys are listening to us on iTunes, give us a 5-star review if you like what you hear. And until then, Fred.
Hey, episode 47 is a wrap. Block the hate. Salute the great.